So today I want to talk about near versus far transfer when it comes to resilience or mental strength, or when we expose ourselves to a challenge, or we look at discomfort, or deliberately do things to try and increase our sort of threat or decrease the impact that threat has on us, or our threat response or fear, or increase our resilience. So a number of examples that kind of I get asked around are sort of cold showers, ice baths, these sort of things where it's a deliberate exposure to something that is uncomfortable. So when we're doing these things, yes, there is a benefit in exposing ourselves to these sort of things, because anything cold will create a threat response. It will create an initial stress, emotion, an increase in our level of vigilance, these sort of things. There's a biological reaction to that. So there is a change in our state, and that requires us to regulate or sort of maintain our function whilst we're under this level of stress. But when we're doing these things, they don't always make us resilient in other domains, such that one domain, or becoming resilient in one domain, doesn't specifically make us resilient in other domains. So yes, I do use these sort of things, and I'll use cold water immersion or ice baths or cold exposures to adapt myself to the climate that I'm going to go into when I'm in Alaska. So yes, I've been asked whether I use them, and I do. But the reality is that I'm not using it to make myself more resilient in certain domains or in general, because it doesn't work like that. So an example of this is when I was younger, I was afraid of heights. So going and doing cold showers or getting in an ice bath wasn't going to improve my relationship with that fear around heights. So the only way I could really do it, or the way I approached it, was I joined the paratroopers. The first airplane I got in, I jumped out of. And I jumped out of about 20 something planes before I eventually landed. So the only way I could confront that was to go and do it. And I went and did it in an environment that was appropriate to my level of adaptation and challenge that I could take on. But in saying that, jumping out of planes didn't transfer to fears in other domains. So I was going into an environment that had a lot of threats, had a lot of fear, there was a lot of things to overcome. And even in some of the other domains that I was exposed to, such as sort of, I was never exposed to the ocean, or I was never comfortable in the water. So I chose a path where that was my role. So later on in my career, it'd be the middle of the night, we'd be parachuting out of the back of a plane over the horizon in the middle of the ocean, following a wrapped up rubber boat that we had to inflate when we got in the water. So now I'm confronting my fear of heights. I'm confronting a fear of just jumping out into the ocean where I've got no idea where I am really, getting into this boat, and then I've got to negotiate the ocean. So having a cold shower or doing an ice bath before that wasn't really going to do anything when it came to jumping out of the plane. And jumping out of the plane didn't really do anything for landing in the water and confronting those fears. And then even later on, that didn't really do anything for me going into combat. And then confronting all those fears, it still didn't make me better at having difficult conversations in relationships. So if we want to get better in a certain domain or confront specific problems that we have, we need to confront those problems. If we try and use ice baths or cold water immersion or any other discomfort like exercise or whatever it is you might want to do, it's just a distraction from the actual fear that you're unwilling to confront. And until you confront that fear, or you do that thing, or you start taking on that challenge in an amount that's just beyond what you really think you're comfortable with, and you continue to progress as you adapt and evolve, then you're never really going to get better. And most of the problems that we have aren't really around physical discomfort anyway. They're around complexity that we've introduced into our own life based on the goals that we want, the status that we think we need to achieve, the identity that we're trying to maintain, or what we're trying to prove. And they're the problems we've created, and they're the threats and the fears that we need to confront to be able to get over and move forward with our life. So if you want to get better or more comfortable with threat and move past some of these challenges and become more resilient, then you need to confront the problems that you have. Okay, so that's pretty much the only way it's going to happen. Otherwise, if you just do a generic activity and think it's going to have far transfer into every domain of resilience, then sadly you're likely setting yourself up for failure, because when we do something, it usually only has near transfer into similar contexts or similar situations or similar domains. So I hope that kind of helps you understand a little bit about how, if you want to get good at something specific, you need to do that specific thing. So start to think about what you need to do, what you need to confront, get out there and start confronting it.